And in defense of that strategy, I believe, we have with us Peter Ferrara, who is the general counsel of the American Civil Rights Union, author of the forthcoming book, America's Ticking Bankruptcy Bomb, the website theacru.org, with a THE at the beginning. Peter, welcome back to the program.
Glad to be here.
So, you write in this article, what's the title of this? The Coming Crash of 2013, and I don't disagree with you that it's coming. In fact, I think it might be coming as early as 2012, that the Great Depression 2.0, I think we're in it, frankly. I think we're in it, and it's the consequence of 30 years of both Reaganomics and Clinton free trade policies. But they weren't just Clinton free trade policies. They were fully and full-throatedly embraced by the Republicans and aggressively advocated by Newt Gingrich.
Well, during the Bush administration, America slowly abandoned each one of the four major planks of Reaganomics. And that's how we ended up in the financial crisis.
Oh,
From 1982 to 2007, we had a historic, unprecedented economic boom, the greatest period of wealth creation in the history of the planet.
Wait a minute, when was that?
1982 to 2007. Check the National Bureau of Economic Research.
If you took that from 19,
but it ended because
Peter,
they
that was a bubble.
Abandoned each one of the components of Reaganomics.
That was a bubble.
Then and what?
That was a bubble. Do you love bubbles? I mean, in the 14th century, Holland had the greatest economic expansion in world history. It was the tulip bubble.
Then under Obama, we followed the opposite of every one of the four planks of Reaganomics, and that is why we're going into the Depression.
Did you just call him Senator Obama?
You can measure Barack Obama's performance.
Did you just call Peter? Did you just call the president Senator?
Are you okay? Are you going to interview me today, or are you interviewing yourself?
I'm interviewing you. Did you just call the president Senator?
No, I said he's been following the opposite.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Of every one of the planks of Reaganomics.
So you don't have a problem calling him President Obama?
During Bush, they abandoned the four planks of Reaganomics. Then under Obama, he's been vigorously following the opposite of all the planks of Reaganomics, and so that is why we're in the Depression now. That's how we got into the financial crisis, and that's why we've never had a recovery from the financial crisis. We actually abandoned them. Let me give you a metric by which you can measure the performance.
Let's just go through these. We will go through these, Peter. We will. But first, do you refer to him as President Obama or not?
I sometimes refer to him as President Obama. Sometimes I refer to him as Barack Obama. When I'm talking about the time during when he was senator, I would refer to him as Senator Obama. How do you do it?
That's fine. I thought there was a subtext there. There apparently wasn't. So the four planks of Reaganomics are what?
One, cut tax rates to give people incentives to increase production, create jobs, start new business, expand business.
Okay. Let's take these one at a time.
The tax rate was 70%. He cut it down to 28%.
Okay. So let me, if I may stop you at one, and we'll go through each one of these, and I'll give you plenty of time to. How is it that we had the greatest economic expansion in the history of the world between 1950 and 1980 before Reagan came into office, and built the middle class and built all the infrastructure you see around you, the schools, the hospitals, the many, well, not the churches so much, but the schools, the hospitals, the government buildings, the highway system. We built all of that, and we had this incredible growth, much better than during the era of Reagan or during the era of Bush. Every one of those 3 decades, growth averaged over 3.2%, and it hasn't averaged over 3.2% for an entire decade since President Reagan became president. It has not. How can you account for the fact that the top tax rate was 91% until 1964 and 74% from then until Reagan became president?
Well, then we had the international bombing policy where all our international competitors were bombed to smithereens. And so that is a tool that we've left in the toolbox since World War II.
We were not selling to them.
We were not, facing international competitors.
Our international trade was...
Now, the 1950s actually were not very good economically. The 1960s were spectacular, and the 1960s were spectacular.
And it wasn't international trade that was doing it.
Kennedy dramatically cut tax rates across the board, and so you had this...
Kennedy raised taxes.
Yeah. He cut the tax rates.
He dropped the top tax rate. Actually, Kennedy didn't do this. LBJ did it. Check your history books. It was a year after Kennedy died. Kennedy proposed it in his debate with Nixon. I can play the audio for you if you'd like. And in that debate, Kennedy said that he was part of that class that paid that top tax rate, and that he knew that there were so many loopholes that he didn't pay anything close to 90%. He wanted to close the loopholes and reduce it to 74%, which would be a tax increase on the rich.
Well,
I can play it
fact,
for you in his own words if you'd like.
In fact,
you need to stop putting words in Jack Kennedy's mouth.
Okay, let me help you. The more you reduce tax rates, the more the rich pay. In fact, when
the more you close loopholes if those tax rates are ineffective. I mean, corporations right now are paying 6% of the total
GDP. Here, when Reagan came into office, the top 1% were paying 17% of the income taxes, and the top rate was 70%. By 2006, the top tax rate had been cut below more than half that rate, and the top 1% were paying 40% of all the income.
That's because the top 1% had tripled their income, even though they a little more than doubled the amount of taxes they paid. If you look at the amount of money that they're paying as a percentage of income, it has gone down.
Well, I don't know the average tax rate.
Peter, I'll bet you, if you want on the air, I will put money on that.
The top 1% are bearing almost all the income tax burden.
The top 1% own almost all the money, Peter.
In regard to income tax.
There are 400 guys in America, 400 men, actually a couple of women, 400 people in America who own more wealth, more cash, and more things than the bottom 150 million Americans. That was not the case when Ronald Reagan came into office.
The tax is not on wealth. The tax is on income. The top 1%.
And income accumulated over time is called wealth.
Look, let me introduce some facts to your analysis. After I leave, you can call me names for the rest of the day.
No, I don't do that, Peter, and you know that.
The top 1% earn 20% of the income, but they pay 40% of the income tax.
Peter, hold on just a second here. We have not had a chance for you to give us the second, third, and fourth planks in the Reagan platform, and I'm curious to hear what they are. You said that the modern-day Republicans have abandoned the 4 tenets of Reaganomics. The first tenet you said was cut taxes. You didn't convince me on that, but I get it that you believe that, and Republicans do, so I'll acknowledge that, and we'll respectfully disagree. What are the other 3 tenets?
Well, it was cut tax rates. That was the thing. And so
cut tax rates, okay.
Yes, and that's what he did. The second component is cut spending. You had the notorious Reagan budget cuts in 1981 that your ideological forerunners heavily vilified.
Which led right to that Great Recession in 82.
And then in constant dollars, non-defense discretionary spending declined by 14% from 1981 to 1982, by 17% by 1983. In constant dollars, non-defense spending never returned to its 1981 level for the rest of Reagan's 2 terms. Even with the defense buildup that won the Cold War without firing a shot, total federal spending as a percent of GDP declined about 10%. That's an enormous accomplishment, especially at the same time.
How then, Peter, first of all, how did he spend over $1 trillion on Star Wars when he was, and was that considered non-defense spending? And secondly, how did he triple the American debt if everything was so great and we weren't spending so much money?
Even with the defense spending, total federal spending as a percent of GDP declined by 10%.
So why did he triple the debt?
Well, he basically came in office. He had 3 big problems. He had the bad economy, he had the Russians taking over the world, and he had the deficit. He only could solve 2 of those.
Russia wasn't taking over the world at that time. They were falling apart. The CIA had predicted that they'd fall apart by 1978, if you go back to the old CIA fact books. They
didn't fall apart by 78. In fact, they were on the march, and it was only as a result of Reagan's aggressive
They pretty much weren't on the march. I mean, the last time that they had involved themselves in anything were the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 60s and Vietnam in the 70s. And after that, they pretty much, they were in crisis mode. I recommend you read Dmitry Orlov's work on Russia.
And but having served in the Reagan
Angola
White House
was the 70s.
That time, he had these 3 problems. He could only solve 2 of the 3. He chose the right 2, which was to win the Cold War and get the economy booming again.
But he didn't win the Cold War. The Soviet Union fell under George Herbert Walker Bush's presidency, not Ronald Reagan's.
Yeah, but that was the result of Reagan's policies over 10 years. And so, he made the right choice.
That's not what the CIA said.
Into not taking the deficit as a top priority and taking the economic recovery and winning the Cold War.
Okay, so are you saying that Barack Obama should do the same thing Reagan did and not take the deficit as his top priority and instead making jobs his top priority? For example, the way Reagan allowed 3 million illegal workers to suddenly become citizens. He gave an amnesty to all the illegals in the United States. Should Barack Obama do that?
Jobs should definitely be the top priority over the deficit, but the deficit, is a drag on the economy rather than a boost to the economy, and so that's why we have this weak economy. And so that was the second component of Reaganomics.
Okay.
The third component of Reaganomics was the strict anti-inflation monetary policy that was restrained money supply growth compared to demand, which was enormously successful. In 1979, 1980, prices rose by 25% over those 2 years. By 1982, he cut that in half. Annual rate of inflation in half. By 1983, cut it in half again to 3%.
But Peter,
never to be heard from again until recently. So
Peter,
that was another historic achievement.
Peter, do you remember, maybe you're not old enough, do you remember when LBJ took Fed Chairman Miller into his office and physically beat him so badly that when he walked out you could tell he'd been beaten up because the guy would not increase, because the guy was about to raise interest rates, he wouldn't increase the money supply, and LBJ needed the money to fight the war in Vietnam? I guarantee you Reagan did not take Paul Volcker or Alan Greenspan into the White House and beat him up. Reagan had no control over the money supply. That was the Fed that did that, not Reagan.
Yeah, but the president backed him up, and that was his policy. His Treasury was supporting that policy. They never would have been able to follow through on that policy if they hadn't had the support of the president. And that is why, the Fed ultimately always follows the president's
No, they
policies.
don't.
And I hold
they
the
don't.
president entirely responsible.
Even when LBJ beat up Miller, Miller didn't do it.
Well, I hold him entirely responsible for the Fed's policies, and so does the public. And so that's the third component of Reaganomics.
So the third component is if the Fed is successful, take credit for it. Okay. And the fourth?
The fourth is deregulation to reduce costs on consumers and businesses and promote.
So what did Reagan deregulate? Did he?
The most important thing he did was that one of his first things was to eliminate the price controls on oil and natural gas, and production soared as a result, and the price of oil actually declined by over 50%. That, again, Obama's doing the opposite of that.
Wait a minute. You're talking about the Nixon price controls?
Reagan's first executive order. I believe those were the Carter price controls. But
well, Nixon was the guy. I was here. I was alive then. I remember we were living in Detroit when Nixon was president, and when the whole it was 72 or 73, and the whole thing went to hell when the Arabs boycotted stopped selling oil to us.
Continued on oil. And when Reagan there was a big battle over that in the Carter administration, price controls on oil and natural gas.
Well, Carter was deregulating like crazy. He deregulated the trucking industry. He deregulated the airline industry.
He refused to. He said that he and the other liberals at the time said if you remove the price controls, the price of oil and natural gas would soar. And Reagan said no, it wouldn't. And exactly the opposite of what the liberals said.
So where are there price controls now that can be removed?
Well, what the point is, Reagan his doctrine was unleash the private sector to maximize energy production, and Obama is leashing the private sector.
He was still enforcing rules that prevented Koch Industries from poisoning people.
Well, I'm against poisoning.
Well, then you're in favor of regulation.
Well, I'm not. I didn't say no regulation. So
what regulation do you want to get rid of specifically?
What would we get? We would remove the regulations that are preventing the production
of oil
and natural gas.
Please name one.
In the Gulf of Mexico. Allow people to produce in the National Petroleum Reserve, for God's sake. If we freed the private sector, we could, in fact, we do have.
So the two things that you said are basically the Koch brothers' wet dream things of let us drill for more oil and gas in places that are environmentally fragile and sensitive.
I agree with them on this point.
You agree with them?
I think
okay,
they're exactly right.
All right, I got it, and I believe you that you believe it, and I respectfully disagree, but thank you for being here, Peter.
All right, well, thank you for having me on the show.
Peter Ferrara, theacru.org is his website. And interesting, the 4 tenets of Reaganomics. I've never heard them laid out like this.